Welcome back to the 28th annual RRSN IFD Kickoff Classic. I'm Mike Fleischman here with Mishawaka Marian Knights head coach Mike Davidson. Coach, last season, 5th straight sectional championship. Season ended in the semi-states at the hand of Bishop Chittard, who went on for a good showing back down in Lucas Oil. But the off-season a little bit strange. You just talked about it a bit with Paul. Tell me a bit about some of the challenges that it's presented to yourself, the coaching staff that works with you and for you, and for your players.
I guess it sort of went in stages. The most difficult being when everything gets shut down and you're going through Zoom workouts and Zoom meetings, and you got a kid who's flipping around with his phone trying to show you him doing a drill or whatever. And you're trying your best to work with them. And I saw cats and dogs and babies, and they're doing drill work in their kitchens and basements and garages, and so that was interesting, to say the least. And then as we got back into it, come July, really it was easy as far as dealing with the kids. And you're not, it's 85 degrees and muggy and trying to push the kids. They were excited to be out there, and that was the best part, is just being out there with them. As far as all the procedures and protocols, it's just a continuous reminder as far as guys separate. And we've been saying it from day one: control the controllables, do our best to ensure that we're doing everything in our power to get to a Friday night and play an opponent. And I think we've done a good job so far.
A lot of people have had to learn about video conferencing and Zoom and all these new technologies, and as a coach, that has to give you a different perspective on your players and their lives and what their home lives are like. What have you learned about your football players from seeing a different aspect of their lives than just in the school environment and school grounds?
As dependent as they are on phones, they're not all that technologically savvy. I think they dumb it down a little bit, or at least that's what it came across as. I think it's just you got to find a way to make that relationship, and that's we missed the lifting and everything in March, April, May, June, and that's one thing. Don't get me wrong. Like, obviously everybody wants to get bigger and faster and stronger, but that relationship that's built, not only coaching staff to players, but player to player, because you got a bunch of juniors last March, April, and May that should have been working out with a bunch of then freshmen, that now this year all of a sudden they could be relying on those freshmen who are now sophomores to be a part of the varsity program. So I think the catch up and figuring out a way to build those relationships through video was the biggest challenge, and I think we did okay. I think there's things that looking back on it, we could have probably done more, maybe even smaller groups rather than bigger groups to try and individualize it a little bit, and little things like that knock on wood, we don't have to worry about in the future, but you never know.
Coach, the run to the playoffs, you had your quarterback Maddox Begonia Jr. He's now a senior. He's got a chance to come back in after being injured for a little bit right at the end of the run. What are some of the things that you're looking for out of Maddox this year as a senior? What are some of the steps that a quarterback can take as he comes under center for a senior season?
Yeah, I think number one is going to be leadership. It was tough for him as far as we had a big, close-knit senior group last year that were already great leaders, so he didn't necessarily have to have that role as a quarterback. And so that's the number one, is him stepping up as a leader, and he's done a pretty good job so far, and we got to continue to develop that, because it's not a you get to a certain point and you stop. It's a living, breathing organism. He's got to continue to work at that, and really just a better grasp of the offense and knowing what he likes, what reads he likes, what does he see easily, and being open and communicating that with the coaching staff.
I liked you and Paul were talking about who's a vocal player and who's not a vocal player. Regardless of the position, if you're in practice and you're seeing a young kid who really is being vocal and likes to talk a lot in practice and express himself, you as a coach, what are the things that you want to hear coming out of that player?
positivity first and foremost, and respect. Those are the two that you can be a loudmouth and you're not leading. You can be a screwball and you're not leading. Both of those are chirp, 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 great, but what are you saying? And so those are the things that you catch, you nip it right there. But when I hear that positive, uplifting, motivating, supportive, and there's going to be chirping. Like we got a good group right now. They like competing with one another. So sure, people are going to talk a little bit back and forth. But you got to be careful and you got to be supportive, knowing that, yeah, we're competing now. And in, 8 days, we're competing for real against Mishawaka.
Coming up in 8 days, what are the things that you need to do between then and now to be ready?
Oh, man. We got to continue to be a physical football team. Mishawaka, and really you look at our schedule, we got a lot of physical football teams on our schedule, so we've got to become a much more physical program or physical team than we currently are. We got to continue to work at that. And come out and just compete at a fast-paced, high level, not worrying about making mistakes. That's the one thing with an inexperienced group. I wouldn't say we're really young necessarily, but we're inexperienced. And you know what? You're going to make mistakes. That's okay. Make them 100 miles an hour, learn from them, and then whether it's 2 plays later or whether it's 2 weeks later, don't make those same mistakes.
Coach, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone in the country who has the same perspective on life that they had maybe back in February. What are some of the things that you think that football in this moment can teach these kids, and how can it prepare them for the future?
One thing that we've harped on it. I think back to my playing days and listening to Reggie Guan and then coaching under him and my last 3 years as head coach. And everybody talks about, cherish this. You don't know when your last snap, your last drill, your last practice, your last game. You don't know when it's going to be. It could be taken away from you like that. And now it's evident. These kids get that, which as a coach, frankly, makes it easier. It's been nice as far as you don't have to push them as much in that regard as maybe in years past. And, moving forward as far as football, I think just that sense of brotherhood. The loneliness that the quarantine, and even if you weren't quarantined, you're not going out and hanging out with all your friends like you normally did. I think that brotherhood and realizing that you need other people in your life in order to not only be successful, but to enjoy life.
We'll end it there. Mike Davidson, head coach of the Marian Knights. Thanks so much for joining us.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.